So I think all of these things are starting to fit together in kind of a scientific explanation for what the rules of reasonableness tell us about how to eat. Multiple foods, eat of the rainbow, stay away from processed foods, eat close to the ground, um, explore new tastes, explore new cuisines. We have the fortune now of having all these different ethnic cuisines available that we didn't in previous times. So seek out different ways of exploring and the adventure of eating. All of these things play into the appropriate signaling of our body to use food as information in a way that promotes resilience.
As you were saying that, how our taste buds change over time. I used to only be when I had coffee, and maybe this is just my taste buds. Let's say being immature when I was in university and when I was in chiropractic school. It had to be, I had to have some milk. I had to have some sugar. So I went from, so in Canada, we say a double double. So it's like double cream, double sugar. So it's like I would always go to the coffee shop and get a double double. So two cream, two sugar. And so now I just love, in my old age, I love a shot of espresso every morning. I love to have, like, I don't have a lot of coffee, but I usually have some espresso before I go and work out, and it's like a shot of coffee and it like a shot of espresso, and it doesn't. I enjoy the taste, and I've had many clients who have also said the exact same thing that you just described. So when we will, let's say, put them on a ketogenic diet, let's say, for a temporary therapeutic intervention. We're trying to get blood glucose under control. Maybe we're trying to help with metabolic flexibility. And then they go back, let's say, so after a month, we've had them on the ketogenic diet, and they go back to trying something because we've been restricting their carbohydrates, let's say, for a month. They go back to having, they have a cheesecake at a wedding, or there's like some family gathering, and they will say the same. They'll say, gosh, that cheesecake or that wedding cake or whatever it was, it just tasted different to me. So it is really exciting, and I think hopeful for someone who, let's say, has grown up eating a certain way, knowing that, maybe their culture or their whatever circumstance, they've always had maybe lots of sugar, lots of salt, but you can totally reprogram it. Like, it's totally something that's within your control, giving yourself obviously the grace to, allow for that time to happen and for you to acquire the skills in order to be able to be someone who can have less sugar and less salt. But I do think that that's a very empowering message, which is, yeah, we're totally chemically programmable. Like, we can change based on the stimulus that we're giving ourselves.
Absolutely. And, for me, I had one of these just aha moments. I was invited to speak. This is about 3 years ago now. I was invited to speak at this very large meeting in Harbin, China. Harbin is one of the, I think it is the largest northernmost city in China, about 20 plus million people in Harbin. It's in between North Korea and Russia. And my guide was a Chinese trained Chinese gentleman that also had other than his MD from China, he had a PhD from the United States. So he dual citizenship. And so we had long discussions. And he asked me a question about a food that I had become interested in just recently that I didn't know much about. And he said, "So do you know much about this ancient food in China, 2,500-year-old food called Himalayan Tartary buckwheat?" And I said, "Well, it's interesting. I just heard about this food from a conversation I'd had with a colleague of mine, an investigator colleague of mine from Vanderbilt Medical School, who had been studying one of the ingredients of this form of buckwheat, which was called 2-hydroxybenzylamine, that was found to lower blood pressure."
So it's Himalayan. Sorry to interrupt you, Doc. It's Himalayan Tartary buckwheat. Okay.
And Tartary is the region it's the Tartan region in China. That's why it's called Tartary buckwheat.
Okay.
And so I got interested in this because it is a supercharged immune strengthening food, in that its level of these immune strengthening polyphenols has over 50 different flavonoids in it, are about between 50 and 100 times higher than common buckwheat. And common buckwheat is already known to be very high in these compounds. So this is like a biochemical factory producing these unique portfolio of these immune strengthening polyphenols and flavonoids. And it's really been interesting for us to get involved now in clinical research, actually looking at its impact when included in the diet on human immune function. And we just finished a large clinical trial study that was registered with the FDA on intervention on immune system patterning, showing influence on immune system epigenetics after eating Himalayan tartary buckwheat. So I think that this concept of food of medicine is starting to get some traction. We're using the newest tools and techniques of science to try to look at ancient things that people have been talking about for 2,500 years and saying, hey, you were right. Now we can start to mechanistically understand how this actually works. So this is an example of a bitter food that has hugely beneficial effects on immune activity and immune resilience.